The restaurant fell silent as Emma's trembling voice cut through the air. "I'll pay for him," she said, tears streaming down her face as she stood beside the single father whose wallet had come up empty. What happened in the next few minutes would change both their lives forever, and might just restore your faith in humanity. If this story touches your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real stories that remind us of the good in this world. Jake Matthews stared at his empty wallet in disbelief. The dinner with his 7-year-old son Ethan was supposed to be a celebration. Ethan had finally made it through a full week at his new school without a panic attack. After losing his mother to cancer 8 months ago, these small victories meant everything. "I'm sorry," Jake whispered to the waitress, his face burning with shame. "I thought I had enough. Can I wash dishes or something?" He couldn't bear to look at Ethan's disappointed face. The boy had been so excited about the chocolate cake they'd promised him for dessert. The waitress shifted uncomfortably. "I'll have to get my manager." That's when Emma Wilson stepped forward from the neighboring table. At 26, she'd spent her entire life being judged for her weight. The whispers, the stares, the unsolicited advice, she'd heard it all. But something about the quiet dignity in the father's embarrassment and the hope fading from the little boy's eyes broke through her usual desire to remain invisible. "I'll pay for him," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "For both of them." Jake looked up, startled by the young woman standing beside their table. She was large, yes, but what struck him most were her kind eyes, eyes that held no judgment, only compassion. "That's very generous, but I can't accept," Jake began. "Please," Emma interrupted. "Let me do this. I've been saving for something special, but I think this is it." What Jake did next shocked everyone in the restaurant. Instead of simply thanking her and accepting the gesture, he pulled out a chair at their table. "Then at least join us," he said. "Ethan and I would love the company, wouldn't we, buddy?" Ethan nodded enthusiastically, his earlier disappointment forgotten. "Do you like dinosaurs?" he asked Emma, his eyes bright with childlike curiosity. Emma hesitated, unused to being invited rather than excluded. Slowly, she sat down, careful not to knock anything over, a habit born from years of trying to take up less space in a world that constantly reminded her she took up too much. "I love dinosaurs," she replied with a genuine smile. "Especially Triceratops. That's my favorite too," Ethan exclaimed, bouncing in his seat. As they shared dessert, Ethan got his chocolate cake after all. Jake learned that Emma was a children's book illustrator working on her first major publication. Emma discovered that Jake was struggling to balance his job as a construction foreman with being a suddenly single parent. "It's the little things that get me," Jake admitted quietly while Ethan was distracted by the restaurant's fish tank. "Like remembering to check his homework or knowing how to handle it when he cries for his mom at night." Emma nodded, understanding loss in her own way. "Sometimes the smallest kindnesses mean the most," she said. "My mom used to say that." By the time they left the restaurant, something had shifted for all three of them. "Jake insisted on getting Emma's number, just so I can pay you back properly," he claimed, though the warmth in his eyes suggested more. 3 days later, Emma received a handmade card in the mail. On the front was a crayon drawing of a triceratops wearing a cape. Inside, in a child's uneven handwriting, "Thank you for being our hero. From Ethan and Dad." What followed was not a fairy tale romance, but something more authentic. Emma began helping Ethan with art projects. Jake fixed the leaky faucet in Emma's apartment. They became friends first, real friends who saw each other's struggles and strengths. The first time Jake invited Emma to Ethan's school play, she almost declined. The thought of squeezing into the small auditorium seats, of being stared at by other parents, nearly overwhelmed her. "I'll be right beside you," Jake promised when she confessed her fears. "And Ethan really wants you there." So she went, and though there were indeed stares, the pride on Ethan's face when he spotted her in the audience made it worthwhile. Their relationship evolved slowly, with setbacks and hesitations. Emma worried that Jake was only grateful, not truly interested. Jake feared he wasn't ready to open his heart again. Ethan sometimes acted out, confused by his feelings for this new person in their lives who wasn't trying to replace his mother but was creating her own space. 6 months after their restaurant meeting, Emma faced her biggest challenge yet. Her publisher wanted her to do a reading of her new children's book, about a plus-sized princess who saves her kingdom through kindness, at the local bookstore. The thought of being so visible terrified her. "I can't," she told Jake during one of their now regular Friday night dinners at his house. "What if people laugh? What if no one comes?" Jake took her hand across the table. "Then we'll be there, laughing with you, not at you. And even if it's just the three of us, that's still an audience worth reading to." The day of the reading arrived, and Emma nearly called in sick. But then her phone chimed with a text from Jake, "Ethan's made you something. We're front row, center." When Emma arrived at the bookstore, her heart nearly stopped. The place was packed, not just with Jake and Ethan, but with what seemed like half the neighborhood. And there, in the front row, was Ethan holding a large poster board sign, "Our favorite author," with a drawing of Emma surrounded by dinosaurs. As she read her story, her voice grew stronger with each page. The children sat entranced, and when she finished, the applause was genuine and warm. But it was what happened next that truly changed everything. Jake stood up, took the microphone, and faced the crowd. "I want to tell you all a story," he began. "About a woman who saw a stranger in need and didn't hesitate to help. About how one act of kindness can start a chain reaction that changes lives." He told their restaurant story, not hiding his embarrassment or vulnerability. And then he turned to Emma. "You saw me at my lowest moment and offered kindness without judgment. You've shown Ethan that heroes come in all shapes and sizes. You've taught me that opening your heart doesn't mean betraying the past." He took a deep breath. "I'm not asking for anything except the chance to keep learning these lessons with you." The bookstore erupted in applause as Emma, tears streaming down her face, nodded and embraced first Ethan, then Jake. Their journey wasn't perfect. Emma still had days when she couldn't face the world. Jake still woke up reaching for his late wife. Ethan still had nightmares. But they faced these challenges together, creating a family built on the foundation of that one moment of kindness in a restaurant. A year after their first meeting, Jake proposed, not with a grand gesture, but during an ordinary moment while they were making Sunday pancakes with Ethan. Emma said yes without hesitation. Their wedding was small but joyful. Emma wore a dress that celebrated rather than concealed her body. Jake wrote vows that acknowledged his past love while embracing his future. And Ethan proudly carried the rings, announcing to everyone that he was getting a bonus mom. The most touching moment came during the reception, when the restaurant waitress who had witnessed their first meeting stood to make a toast. She had become a friend over the months, often joining them for game nights. "I've served thousands of customers," she said, raising her glass, "but I've never seen a simple meal change lives the way yours did. You've reminded all of us that kindness is never wasted and that family can be found in the most unexpected moments." As Emma and Jake danced their first dance as husband and wife, with Ethan occasionally cutting in, they knew their story wasn't about a before and after transformation. It wasn't about Emma losing weight or Jake overcoming grief in some miraculous way. Real life doesn't work like that. Instead, their story was about finding people who make the journey worthwhile, whatever shape that journey takes. It was about creating space for each other's struggles while celebrating each other's joys. It was about building a family based not on perfection but on acceptance. 5 years later, their family had grown. They'd adopted a daughter, Lily, who had Ethan's enthusiasm and Emma's artistic talent. Jake had started his own construction company, specializing in accessible home modifications. Emma had published 3 more books, each celebrating differences and kindness. And every year, on the anniversary of their restaurant meeting, they returned to the same table and invited a stranger to join them for dessert. Sometimes it was a lonely elderly person. Sometimes a struggling student. Once, it was a young single mother with twins who later became Emma's assistant and one of their closest friends. Their tradition became known in the community, inspiring others to create their own kindness tables in restaurants across town. A local news station did a feature on the movement, interviewing Jake, Emma, and a now teenage Ethan about how one moment of generosity had created ripples they never could have imagined. "The thing is," Emma told the reporter, comfortable now in her own skin in a way she'd never thought possible, "people often think kindness is about grand gestures. But sometimes it's just about seeing someone who feels invisible and saying, 'I see you. You matter.'" Jake squeezed her hand as he added, "And sometimes the person you're helping ends up helping you even more." Ethan, wise beyond his years, had the last word. "My mom, my first mom, used to say that family is who loves you when it's hard. Emma taught me that sometimes family is who you choose, and who chooses you back, every single day." Their story reminds us all that judgment comes easy, but kindness takes courage. That bodies and circumstances change, but a compassionate heart remains beautiful always. That sometimes the most profound connections begin with the simplest words, "I'll pay for him." If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more reminders that in a world where you can be anything, being kind might just be the most powerful choice of all.